5 minutes versus 5 hours versus 5 days. I challenged myself to carve the same skull with these time constraints to see if more time meant better art. Let's get right into it. 5 minutes is on the clock. Let's go ahead and get started.
Let's go.
I'm using the bandsaw here to just rough cut this shape as quickly as possible, and time is slipping away so fast, and it kind of makes this a little dangerous. Last year I almost cut my finger off, and I still have all the blood spatter on my garage floor that I haven't cleaned up because I want to remember this and remember to be safe in the shop. This is taking a lot longer than I thought. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the clock here so I can turn off the bandsaw and then move over to my carving station.
I was expecting this to take like 2 minutes and I'd have half the time on the angle grinders. This was so unbelievably slow, and now I have no clue if I'm gonna even be able to make this thing resemble a skull. With 30 seconds, I think maybe I hit the eyes really quick with this aggressive burr, and then maybe I have 10 seconds to just round this out, but this is absolutely terrible. Wow. 34 seconds on the clock. Let's get to it. Ten seconds. Oh, come on. Wow, that's embarrassing. This is absolute embarrassment. I mean, I thought I was gonna have more time. 5 minutes goes by so quick. If this weren't Sharpied on here, I don't think anyone would know this is a skull. Let's get to the 5-hour one, where I could actually sit down, take my time, and hopefully get a skull that resembles a skull, not something like this piece of junk. Let's get to it. All right, here we have old growth redwood burl. This is the same piece of wood that I used for my very first T-Rex skull carving, and it is just a beautiful piece of wood, and my goal on this is to do justice for this piece of wood. If I do anything like that first one, I'm gonna be so frustrated because this wood deserves better than that. Let's get to it.
This carving is going extremely well right now, however there's one massive problem. The lower jaw has a huge crack in it, and this crack is very likely to completely come off this skull. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the clock, glue this thing up, come back in another 30 minutes, and then finish this thing up. Let's go ahead and test your guys' skull anatomy here. I made a really big mistake here when carving this skull. I'm just trying to carve as fast as possible and not really take measurements or proportions, and it's a pretty big mistake when I look at it, but I want to see what you guys think. See if you can guess what mistake I made. And I'll tell you guys what that is a little later on in this video.
Oh. I am dirty and absolutely exhausted right now. I went 3 hours straight, but I am absolutely shocked with how far I made it on this. I did not think I was going to get here. I didn't think I'd be able to put in details of the teeth, or honestly, I'm just beyond shocked how quick this went. I think part of this is because this is redwood. It's a really soft wood, really easy to carve. I have about 2 hours left. I need an hour for sanding and about an hour for finishing. So I think we are in a perfect time slot right here. And I am so pumped to see some finish on this thing. I think this thing's going to look just absolutely beautiful. Let's finish this thing up tomorrow.
Okay, let's see who guessed this right. There are a lot of different things that I think I could have done better on this carving, but the main thing that sticks out every time I see this thing is the width of the teeth. Look at the width of the teeth right here. It should be way wider than that. Because I was rushed, I just ended up carving off too much, and that's just what happens when you're rushed. You know, I didn't have time to do proper measurements and all of that, and it's just part of what this challenge does to me. But overall, I am extremely happy with how this one turned out, and I will show you all of the final reveal close-ups of this sculpture at the end of the video.
We are done, and I am honestly just blown away with this 5-hour challenge. I honestly thought that it was going to be kind of an in-between these two. All right, up next, the 5-day challenge. This is fun. I got to do this more.
Okay, this one's going to start a little bit different than the other two. This right here is a root burl ball of a carob tree. Here's a carob tree, and they have these weird little bean stalks. Anyways, I know nothing about it. A friend's dad gave it to me, and I've had it sitting outside for a little over 3 years now. And part of the reason why I haven't used it is because there's so much bark kind of trapped in all these little crevices that makes it really, really hard to work with. But luckily for me, I have an idea that I think can make this piece usable. I plan on putting this thing in a pressure pot with epoxy resin. The pressure pot is going to basically squeeze all of these little crevices deep inside this piece. It's going to get all of the air out, allowing that epoxy resin to penetrate deep inside this little burl cluster. If I were to do this outside a pressure pot, I think all of the little internal cavities would just remain full of air, and it would basically be a non-usable piece. So unlike the first two carvings, this one is going to take me all day long to prep and pour the epoxy, and there will be a lot of bark removal.
Hey guys, I have a goal of reaching 1 million subscribers. I am a long ways off from that, but I'm pretty close to my next milestone at 800,000. So if you like this video and like this content, please consider subscribing. And in return, I'll show you my banana. No, not that kind of banana. This one up here. Let me show you this. How do I turn this thing around? A couple of videos ago, I showed you guys this banana tree that's growing bananas for the first time ever, which is basically unheard of here in Central California. It's been a couple months and these bananas aren't growing any bigger. So if you're a banana expert, let me know down in the comments why these aren't growing or what I can do to make these things grow. All right, thanks guys.
A little while ago, I did a poll and asked you guys, what color epoxy do you think would be best for this skull carving? And I am so pumped that the majority of you chose gold, because that's what I wanted from the get-go. And then I read a couple comments about doing multiple colors, and I then thought, that is a great idea. So I'm actually going to mix a little bit of bronze and then the majority gold and try and go for like a swirling pattern within this skull. I'm super excited to see if this thing works out, but I am not getting my hopes up, because if you've seen any of my last videos, you know that mistakes happen on this channel, especially dealing with epoxy. So I have low hopes, but I'm just going for it. We're going to put this thing in the pressure pot and see what happens. And check out how awesome this looks. I am so happy with how this block turned out. Both sides just look awesome. I mean, this is probably the coolest looking epoxy and wood matchup I've ever done. And I've done a lot of different wood and epoxy sculptures. So let's get to carving this thing. Just look at how cool this thing already looks. This is just one of those rare moments that maybe you guys have experienced in another hobby of yours or passion of yours, that you just wake up and you can't wait to get to work on something. For me, this is exactly that. I wake up in the morning and I am so excited to whittle down this shape and hone it down, because this has got to be one of the coolest pieces I've ever carved. Okay, day 3 is done. I'm super super happy with how this thing looks right now, but this one is taking so much longer than the previous one. The epoxy and piece of burl are definitely a lot denser than the other two sculptures, which makes up for a lot of added time, but I think the majority of extra time I'm spending on this is trying to get all the proportions correct. I'm using my template. I'm actually taking measurements this time so I don't mess up another jaw or any other feature, and it's just those little details and more time that just spent proportioning things out that make this such a longer build than the previous two. On day 4, I plan on spending almost the entire day sanding, and again, unlike the previous two sculptures, this one I'm going to sand up to 800 grit, and it's going to take that much longer because there is a lot of hand sanding. Now that the top of the skull is sanded, I could start adding the finer details like these little skull rivers that you see here. I don't think that's what they're actually called. Something makes me feel like they're called sutures maybe? Anyways, I don't really know, but I like skull rivers. I think it's got a real flow to it. All right, this was an absolute blast to make. I'm going to show you guys the final reveal of these sculptures in a second. Maybe not so much of this one, but these two, definitely. And these two will be available for purchase over on my website. Lastly, this video is a lot different than what I normally do. If you liked it and you like this style, this kind of challenge style, let me know down in the comments. I would love to do another one like this, but only if you guys like watching it. All right, let's get to the big reveal.